You wake up, the sunlight is creeping into your room, and for a brief moment, you feel a spark of motivation. Today you say will be different. But minutes later your phone glows. A few taps, a scroll, and an hour disappears into nothingness. The to-do list remains untouched. Your dreams stay shelved. And a quiet voice inside you begins to whisper, "What's wrong with me?" Laziness is not a defect. It is not weakness. It is not who you are. It is a habit of inaction. A subtle addiction to comfort. And comfort, when left unexamined, becomes a silent prison. The Stoics knew this well. They weren't warriors of comfort, nor preachers of extreme discipline for its own sake. They were realists, and their message to us is sharp and clear. If you want freedom, mastery, and meaning, you must act. Let's begin with the first perspective, understanding the roots of procrastination. Procrastination at its core is not about laziness. It's about avoidance. We avoid discomfort. We postpone the uncomfortable task, the tough conversation, the big ambition. Why? Because deep down, we fear failing, we fear the effort, or we fear confronting parts of ourselves we don't fully understand. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who could have delegated everything, wrote to himself every morning. He reminded himself that he was not made for luxury or idleness, but to do the work of a human being. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, "I have to go to work as a human being." Here's the key insight. The modern world has robbed us of urgency. Everything is too easy, too available, too on demand. We are lulled into softness by convenience. But the Stoic trains himself to manufacture urgency. To act not when the flames of necessity force movement, but when his own reason commands it. This leads to the second Stoic weapon against laziness: routine. Marcus had a morning ritual. Epictetus, though born into slavery, set strict routines for himself. And Seneca reminded his readers that how one lives each day is how they live their whole life. Routine is discipline applied gently, consistently. Not in bursts of burnout, but in patient repetition. The Stoics knew that excellence wasn't spontaneous, it was built brick by brick. Your will is a muscle and routine is its daily workout. Ask yourself, what is the first thing you do upon waking? Is it scrolling endlessly through someone else's life, or owning your own time? Design a simple ritual, just 10 minutes, to ground yourself in intention. Whether it's journaling, stretching, reading, or silence. Let this be the flag you plant each morning declaring, "Today I command my life." And then, when faced with overwhelming tasks, you'll use the next Stoic strategy, tackling tasks systematically. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." We often freeze before large goals because we imagine the full weight of the mountain. But what if you just started walking, one stone at a time? The 5-minute rule is a Stoic-friendly tool. Tell yourself you only need to start for 5 minutes. Often that's all you need to break inertia. Because the hardest part isn't doing, it's beginning. Laziness isn't cured by ambition, it's cured by motion. Tiny steps compound. Small wins become streaks. Progress creates belief. And once you've built momentum, you meet the next wall, internal resistance. That voice that says, "You can do it later." This is where you wield the fourth Stoic tool. Take the first step, immediately. The Stoics teach that hesitation is often the death of action. Mel Robbins' famous 5-second rule echoes this. Count backward, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and act before your doubts talk you out of it. This is not just motivation, it's neurology. You interrupt the hesitation loop by moving before fear settles in. Epictetus advised, "How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself?" Waiting for motivation is a trap. The Stoic moves before he feels like it. He acts from values, not mood. From clarity, not impulse. And he knows that willpower alone is not sustainable. So he brings in systems. He guards his focus. He uses time intentionally. Which brings us to the next insight, the Pomodoro technique. 25 minutes of deep focus. 5-minute break. It's ancient wisdom disguised in a modern method. Seneca said, "Nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart." And we say nothing is more effective than grateful attention. When you give your full mind to a task, you are honoring your time, your gift, your life. Short intervals trick the brain. Work becomes a game. The timer starts. You begin. Distractions fade. You rest. Then you begin again. And when those distractions do creep back in, notifications, noise, temptations, you apply the seventh and final Stoic strategy of part 1. Control your environment. You are not stronger than your surroundings, you are shaped by them. A cluttered desk invites avoidance. An open social media tab invites mindless scrolling. The Stoics would say, do not test your will unnecessarily. Design your space to support your goals. Create a minimalist workspace. Turn your phone off during work sprints. Let your environment reflect your intention. Because in the end, laziness is not a personality trait. It is a pattern of unexamined choices. The Stoic path is not about being perfect. It is about being intentional. You don't need more motivation. You need clarity. You don't need more time. You need fewer leaks. You don't need to conquer the world. You need to begin, now, with the next right step. You've begun. You've moved. The first battle is over, but the war is not. Because laziness, like any habit, doesn't vanish in a single strike. It lingers, it waits, and it tests your commitment with every hour that passes. Now comes the harder part, consistency. The Stoics understood that transformation wasn't an event, it was a process. Marcus Aurelius wrote not just once but every day. Epictetus didn't preach philosophy from a mountaintop. He lived it hour by hour, task by task. Seneca warned not of poverty or hardship, but of wasting life itself. And if there's one message that binds them together, it's this. Progress is not perfection, but persistence. So you've made your routine. You've taken that first step. But what happens when the motivation fades again? What do you do when the world presses in, the mind begins to chatter, and the bed feels too warm, the desk too cold? Here we turn back to the Stoics, because they never promised ease. They promised strength, earned through struggle. And that means confronting the next enemy, comfort addiction. Comfort is not the enemy, but dependence on it is. The Stoics trained themselves to endure discomfort not as punishment, but as preparation. They took cold baths. They wore rough clothes. They fasted. What? Not to prove toughness, but to remind themselves, I do not need luxury to live well. Seneca famously said, set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself all the while, is this the condition I feared? He wasn't suggesting you live in misery. He was teaching detachment. That comfort is pleasant but not essential. That action should not be postponed until every condition is ideal. This is the core of anti-laziness, refusing to wait for perfect conditions. You don't need the perfect morning to write. You don't need the best gym shoes to exercise. You don't need silence to think deeply. You need only to begin in whatever condition you're in. And when you've done that for a day, the next challenge arises. Repetition fatigue. Doing the same thing every day feels dull. We crave novelty. Our minds wander. So how do the Stoics answer that? They bring us back to purpose. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often, you are here for a reason. The grind is not separate from the goal, it is the goal. The practice is the path. The simple, repeated action, done with clarity and intention, becomes a sacred ritual. He didn't brush off repetition as boring. He transformed it into devotion. So when your routine feels dry, don't ask, how do I spice this up? Ask, why did I start this? Anchor yourself in meaning. Reconnect to your why. If your task is to write, then write for the reader who's waiting to be moved. If your task is to study, then study for the version of yourself who will one day need this knowledge. Let every repeated action become a vote for the person you are becoming. And when fatigue still pulls at you, remember this. Willpower alone is not enough. Even Stoics use systems. The 5-second rule. The Pomodoro timer. A preset routine. These are not hacks. They are defenses. Defenses against forgetfulness. Against temptation. Against the seductive voice that says, just 5 more minutes of nothing. And when systems falter, we reach for the Stoics' deepest tool, self-reflection. At the end of each day, Marcus asked himself, what did I do? What did I avoid? What could I do better? He wasn't seeking shame. He was seeking awareness. He knew that unexamined days become wasted weeks. And so he paused, not to judge himself, but to recalibrate. You can do the same. At the end of your day, take 3 minutes. Ask yourself, did I use my time well? What pulled me off course? What can I improve tomorrow? Do this not once, but every evening. Over time, your days become clearer. Your actions become sharper. Your laziness begins to dissolve, not through punishment, but through understanding. Because laziness thrives in darkness, in unconsciousness. But when light is shined upon it daily, it retreats. And now we arrive at a deeper truth. One the Stoics hinted at but rarely shouted. A truth we often avoid. You are not lazy. You are afraid. Afraid of starting. Afraid of failing. Afraid that your effort might not be enough. But what if the goal isn't to be enough? What if the goal is simply to try, fully, honestly today? The Stoics never demanded success. They demanded integrity. They asked only this: are you doing your duty now? Marcus Aurelius put it simply: do what is in front of you with a clean heart. That's it. So when the day begins, don't ask, can I finish this? Ask, can I begin it with intention? When the afternoon drags, don't ask, am I motivated? Ask, can I act even without motivation? When night falls, don't ask, did I do it all? Ask, did I do what mattered? And the more you ask these questions, the more your days change. Not dramatically, not explosively, but steadily, quietly, stoically. Laziness doesn't vanish in a flash. It erodes, day by day, under the weight of presence, purpose, and practice. This is the Stoic way. Not flashy, not quick, but real, enduring, and available to you right now. By now, you understand something deeper. Laziness is not a personality trait. It's a moment-to-moment decision. And more often than not, it's a decision made unconsciously. The Stoics, being masters of awareness, understood this well. That is why they emphasized living deliberately. Not by default, not by comfort, but by conscious choice. Let's now return to another cornerstone of the Stoic method: task structuring. Big tasks are intimidating. That's universal. It's not laziness that makes you stall at the edge of a mountain. It's overwhelm. But here's the beauty of Stoic practice. They remind us that mountains are climbed one step at a time. Epictetus would say, don't let the force of impression carry you away. Say to it, hold up a bit. Let me see who you are and what you represent. Let me put you to the test. That force of impression, what we feel when a big task stares us down, is the voice that says, this is too much. I don't even know where to start. But we do know where to start. The Stoics taught us to begin with what is within our control. And what is always in our control? The next step. The smallest piece. Enter the 5-minute rule. Just start for 5 minutes. Tell yourself, I don't have to finish this paper. I don't have to clean the whole apartment. I don't need to master this subject. I just need to set a timer and do 5 focused minutes. You'll be surprised how often 5 minutes becomes 15, then 30, then completion. Why does it work? Because action fuels motivation, not the other way around. You don't wait to feel good to act. You act to feel good. Marcus Aurelius echoed this when he said, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do? He's not glamorizing fatigue. He's reframing it. He's saying, you're not tired, you're forgetting your purpose. And purpose, even in the smallest things, is enough to dissolve hesitation. Now let's refine your work sessions. It's not just about starting. It's about staying on track. Here, the Pomodoro technique becomes your ally. 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. Simple, structured, stoic in spirit. Why? Because it imposes limits on a limitless mind. The human brain drifts. It fatigues. It rebels. But when it knows, I only have to concentrate for 25 minutes, the rebellion softens. The Stoics didn't use timers, but they understood intervals. They broke the day into manageable blocks. They prayed in the morning, trained in the afternoon, wrote in the evening. There was rhythm, order, flow. You need the same. Set a timer. Choose one task. Eliminate every distraction. Focus not on the result, but on the presence. One Pomodoro, then another. And suddenly, a day is shaped not by how you feel, but by what you've chosen to do. And now we come to a critical piece of Stoic productivity that many overlook: environment. Yes, your surroundings shape your behavior. This is not weakness, it's design. Seneca observed how being around people of vice can corrupt your own virtue. He said, even the most robust character can be corrupted by a toxic crowd. Apply this inward. If your phone is buzzing, your room cluttered, your desk chaotic, you're not failing because you're weak. You're failing because the battlefield is tilted against you. The Stoic response? Control what you can. Clean your workspace. Leave your phone in another room. Put on headphones. Create a zone that reflects your intention, not your temptations. When you sit down at your desk, the message should be clear: this is where I act. Your environment is your silent ally or your subtle saboteur. Choose wisely. Now that we've looked outward, let's return inward again, to perhaps the most underrated, overlooked Stoic principle in the fight against laziness: self-respect. Why do you rise in the morning when no one's watching? Why do you complete the task even if there's no reward? Why do you resist comfort even if no one will ever praise your discipline? Because you know who you are. Marcus Aurelius didn't journal to impress. He did it to stay aligned. Epictetus didn't teach for applause. He did it because it was his nature. You fight laziness not for status but for self. Every time you complete what you set out to do, you reinforce a message: I am the kind of person who shows up. That identity, built through repetition, is the greatest reward of Stoic practice. And when that identity takes root, motivation becomes less important. Discipline becomes less of a battle. You act not because it's easy, but because it's you. You become someone who gets things done, who keeps their promises, who doesn't negotiate with laziness. This transformation isn't loud. It doesn't get headlines, but it builds a life, a stable, strong, Stoic life. And that's where we'll pick up next, when we confront the final enemies of progress, fear of imperfection and the illusion of someday. There is one final illusion that sustains laziness, the belief in someday. Someday I'll wake up early. Someday I'll write that book. Someday I'll quit this job, start that project, fix my habits, live with more intention. But here's the truth the Stoics never let themselves forget. Someday is not promised. Seneca warned us, you act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. What did he mean? He meant that we treat our time as infinite when we waste it, and treat danger as imminent when it often isn't. We panic over things that don't matter and postpone the things that do. We scroll and stall and sleep through life as if we have an eternity to get serious. But we don't. You want to end laziness? Remember that time is your most precious, unrenewable possession. Not money, not reputation, not even health. Time. And you don't know how much you have left. Marcus Aurelius asked himself this each morning: do I rise to do the work of a human being, or do I shrink from my purpose again today? There is no neutral day. Either you grow stronger or you decay. Either you move forward or you stay asleep. And there's one last enemy standing in your way: perfectionism. How often have you delayed action because it wasn't the right time? Because you weren't fully ready? Because the plan wasn't perfect yet? The Stoics rejected this completely. Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Not wait until conditions are ideal. Not study for 10 years before moving. Not wait until fear dissolves. Just begin. You'll never feel ready. That's the trick. Life doesn't present the green light. You have to move while it's still yellow. Do you think the great Stoics waited for confidence? No, they acted. And confidence followed their action. That is why one of the most powerful techniques to end laziness is this: start before you feel ready. Start with the rough version. Start with the broken plan. Start with the small steps. Start scared. And then improve through movement. Laziness feeds on inaction. But once motion begins, it's harder to stop. This is the ancient truth modern science confirms. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. You are not lazy because you're flawed. You're not lazy because you lack potential. You've simply allowed your thoughts to rule you, your environment to distract you, your perfectionism to freeze you, your days to drift. But not anymore. Because now you know what the Stoics knew. That procrastination is a pattern you can break by cultivating urgency. That daily routines, like those Marcus Aurelius held, bring dignity and structure to time. That daunting tasks lose their power when you reduce them to small, systematic steps. That the first step is always the most important. That mental hacks like the 5-second rule are your ally against hesitation. That the Pomodoro technique creates space for focused action without burnout. That your environment shapes your behavior, so take control of it. That self-respect is the ultimate motivation. That someday is a fantasy and now is the only real time. And that perfectionism is the mask fear wears. So what do you do now? You act. Not tomorrow. Not next week. No. You take one task. You break it down. You set a timer. You remove distractions. You count 5-4-3-2-1, and you begin. Not to finish everything. Not to be perfect. But to prove to yourself that you are not your hesitation. You are your decisions. You are your discipline. You are your direction. And as the Stoics teach, you already have everything you need within you. The will, the reason, the capacity for virtue. So let today be the last day you say, I'll get to it later. Let today be the day you reclaim your hours, your effort, your energy. Laziness ends when you stop negotiating with weakness and start living with strength. The Stoics didn't wait for motivation. They lived by principle. Now it's your turn. If this spoke to you, subscribe to Stoic Way for more timeless wisdom. Comment below, what's the one task you've been avoiding, And how will you begin it today?